Okay, hello. Anybody see or hear me at all? I think it threw me out once. You might be able to hear me. You'll be hearing some church bells as well, which that's what happens when you don't know the place, you don't know what's going to be happening. I'm not sure. There's been a service that just finished. Now, I'm not sure whether it was just a local service, whether it was a funeral, a wedding. I have no idea at all. I just saw a whole load of people come out of the church. I wanted to take a quick look inside the church when I arrived here, but I could see that there was a congregation in there. So I thought, okay. And then I heard some singing, and I retreated well away from the church. But so I don't know. I mean, you know, a midweek afternoon service, your first thought generally would tend towards funeral, but whatever it is, we have to try to make sure we stay well out of the way of everybody. But people have come out of the church. I saw people coming out and making their way over to the car park. So well, I bought something cheery at my funeral. So a big hello to everybody. Hello to Beatrice and Robin and Casey and Susan and Emma and Leslie and who else? Claire, I saw, I think, and Mitzi. Oh, well, big hello to all of you. And to Dawn. Hello, Dawn. Cheering is certainly better than sad. That is one thing that is for definite. But I'm sitting here, and actually, it's not a very nice day. It's a bit dull, and it's a bit wet. It's not raining at the moment, but the grass is very wet, and as a result, my shoes are quite wet. But it is dry, and looking forward to this kind of different kind of tour. Hi, Richard. Lovely to see you. And if you are joining in and you want to say hello, feel free to do so in the chat. I can give you a shout out then, but if you don't want to join in the chat, that's fine. Just sit back and enjoy the tour. That's okay too. So hello Nancy. I didn't see you. I still have this weird thing that I've never managed to fix, and that's that whenever one of you makes a comment in the chat, I see it twice. Yeah, your comments are so good, I see them twice, but it's kind of... I know that some of my colleagues have had a lot of trouble with the Streamlabs platform, and I hit wood of this bench very many times, as I say it, have not been plagued by many problems with Streamlabs, so I don't want to start tinkering with it to try to get rid of the duplicate chat entries, because I don't want to do anything that might, change the way the app is working in some way. Hi Nicole, lovely to have you here. Hope you are settling back into life at home after your lengthy trip to the other side of the world. Hello Anne. Some guides have gone to Prism. I hope that's not a typo. Have they been up to no good, have they? How long a sentence did they get? No, that's right, Claire. I don't want to cause stress to my spanners. I tell you what, they're having a good session out of these bells. Whether it's a funeral or a wedding or whatever it is, you pay extra for the bell ringers, and they're getting their money's worth. That's for sure. I know, Robin. I'm just joking. I watched. Who did I watch the other day who was using Prism? Lily? Could it have been? I think Lily was using Prism when I watched her tour in London the other day. I've not tried it, and to be honest, I'm a great believer in if it ain't broke, don't get your spanner out and fix it. And Streamlabs seems to be doing okay for us, and that's okay for me. John does too. Yeah, I think a few do, but I think it's what you find works, and maybe some of them work better with different operating systems and different types of phones, and who knows what. I just don't know, but I've been getting on okay with Streamlabs, and until that changes, I'll stick with it. Anyway, it is 3:01. Emma, that was bell ringing practice, I think, wasn't it, at the parish church opposite the pub in the town where me and Emma grew up. Hello Trist, lovely to see you. Robin, thank you for asking. Sally Jane is okay. Sally Jane is, I don't know, I saw her when I left this morning, and I'm not back till Sunday, so that was late Sunday night, so that was kind of a different setting off from home today. Anyway, let's make a start, shall we? And I'm going to stand up, get my feet and legs, make sure I've not left anything on the bench, and give you all a warm welcome to the town of Warminster. Warminster, to the best of my knowledge, pronounced as it is written, which makes it something of a rarity among English towns. You know, it's not Wamster or anything like that. It's Warminster, and we are starting our tour in the churchyard of St. Denis Church, which is the minster that gives its name to the town. So the war part, it's nothing to do with fighting. That comes from the name of a little river that runs through the town, a tributary of the Bristol Avon. So we're in the kind of towards the southwest of England, east of Bath and Bristol. And this is a market town of about 20,000 people in the county of Wiltshire. So it's quite a rural county, Wiltshire. Lots of kind of agriculture over the years, and quite a few of these market towns where the trade in those agricultural produce took place. So let me turn around the camera and we can take a look at this Minster Church. Now, Minster Church was an old sort of a remnant really of the time when Christianity was first becoming established in England in the Anglo-Saxon period. And a Minster church would be in kind of a larger town or village, and there would be a group of priests who would then go out into the local communities and the tiny villages and settlements, preaching, baptizing, the places that didn't yet have their own permanent religious buildings. So that's what a Minster church was, and this is a very fine example. There's nothing left today of the original Anglo-Saxon church, but what we see today dates in parts back to the 11th and 12th centuries. It was extended and added to, modernised in the 14th, and had a big restoration, as many churches did in the Victorian era. But it's a beautiful Norman tower, Norman style tower, and then a little bit into the early Gothic style of architecture as well. And St. Denis, which is an interesting designation, reflecting, I think, probably the French influence ruling England at the time. Don't it? It is built like a castle. Probably needed to be. You know, the churches would have been defensible points, you know, where people could retreat to in times of trouble and so on. So I apologise if I do get a bit drowned out by the bells as we walk a bit closer. I'm trying to cut across and to get out to the front of it. And we have in the churchyard some beautiful trees, yew trees, which are very, very old. Hello Cheryl, lovely to see you. And yew trees are commonly found in churchyards. The reason they wanted yew wood was for bows, for hunting and for military purposes, to make the long bows. And the foliage of the yew trees are poisonous to cattle and other livestock. So they had them in the churchyards because that was the only place in a medieval village where the livestock would not really be allowed to roam very much. So they can grow the trees without worries of poisoning the livestock. So this is a huge one, but round the front there's an even bigger one. Now I'm hoping that my signal doesn't drop out when I go along the side of the church here. No, it is lovely to hear the bells, isn't it? They really are having a good old session of ringing. Oh. So, look at that for a yew tree at the front of the church. Look at the size of that trunk. Look at the size of that ancient tree. That tree is believed to date back to at least the 12th century, so it's at least 800 and more years old. What an amazing tree. Yeah, it's lovely bells. But let's make our way. I do like the sign, warning, historic cobbles. Well, yeah, I think so. Yeah, what an amazing tree. 850 something years old, I think. It's pretty amazing. So, another look at the church tower from this side. Before we move on, because okay, so we are actually, Warminster is quite a strange town in many ways, because it was kind of a town that grew up as kind of a string of little developments along a couple of main roads, and they kind of all amalgamated to form a market, so the church is not really in the town centre. It's kind of at the end, at one end of the town, and then we'll be making our way down into the town centre and seeing some of the other historic buildings. This part of town is sort of dominated by the church and also by a couple of very grand 18th century buildings that we can see. But probably one of the things that Warminster is best known for, and something that has played a big role in the development, the history of the town, is its proximity to a place called Longleat. Now Longleat, you may be familiar with the name. If you're British, I'm sure you will be, but even if you're not, Longleat is a beautiful stately home, fantastic Elizabethan stately home, which is the seat of the Marquesses of Bath, and is known these days as a place where they have a safari park, so you can go there and see wild animals. And Longleat is just very, very close to here. And the Marquesses of Bath and the Thin family, which is the name of the family that holds that title, they have played a huge role in terms of endowing things like the churches and the educational things, and being involved in the development of the town and so on. Now, they haven't always had the title Marquesses of Bath. That is only since the late 18th century. Prior to that, the Thin family And that's not thin like the opposite of fat. That's Thyne. That's the name. That's the name of the family. They were called the Viscounts of Weymouth, and Viscount Weymouth was the owner of Longleat and the holder of that title, ancestor of the Marquesses of Bath. And in 1707, here in this very building, he founded a grammar school. 1707, Viscount Weymouth's school. And the school grew over the years, and other sort of educational institutions were established around this part of the town. And they kind of amalgamated, finally coming together in 1973, the boys' school, which was the Viscount Weymouth School, and then a girls' school, which had originally been a school called St. Denis Convent School, a Church of England convent, associated with the beautiful church that we saw. And they amalgamated in 1973, and now it's just called Warminster School. And a lot of what we're going to see in the next couple of minutes is parts of the school. Now, it's a private school, it's a fee-paying independent school. They have boarding students and they have day students. This is not the school that I'm going to be working with. I'm doing a tour for a school group this week to Paris, starting in the early hours of tomorrow. That's why I'm down here in Warminster. But I'm doing it for the state school that's also in the town. Now, the interesting thing about this original school building is the beautiful doorway. Not just the blue doors, but the beautiful carved doorway. Now, this doorway is called the Wren doorway, and it was designed by Sir Christopher Wren, and it was designed for Viscount Weymouth as the main doorway to Longleat House. And in 1663 it was installed to the house because they were expecting special visitors. They were expecting a visit from King Charles II, recently restored to the throne, and his wife, Queen Catherine. And they had a new doorway made, but they didn't leave it on Longleat's house. They upgraded again, and the doorway was then sort of removed and used here on the school building. So that's why we have this beautiful Wren doorway. It's beautiful. You see, I always find a doorway. So a lot of the buildings we see in front of us, parts of the Warminster School. Hello to anyone who has just joined us. Oh, hello, Ronnie Lynn. I see you joining us. I'm not sure how the fees are. I'm sure it's pretty expensive. These kinds of schools tend to be. But ever since the merger with the girls' school in 1973, it's been a co-educational school. And that's some of the main buildings of the school up ahead. And in the early 20th century, I believe, maybe late 19th century, the school swallowed up another school that had been established on the same in the same part of town, which was a national school. Now, the national schools were set up by the Church of England in the late 18th century, really, to provide a religious-based education to children originally from poorer families who could not afford to pay for school fees. It was the National Society for the Promotion of Religious Education. So around the school there were many national schools that were linked to the Church of England. Quite a lot of them remain. I went to a national school. The secondary school that I went to was the National School, and celebrated its 200th anniversary while I was in attendance there, actually. But the National School here in Warminster was subsumed into this Warminster Grammar School later in its history. So these are all various buildings of the school. It has kind of a campus using various you know, older buildings, and looks like what was once the school chapel, or from the outside. We'll see it very soon on the right hand side. The white building up ahead of us certainly at one time looks like it would have been the school chapel, but it sounded as I was walking along that that's now the music department of the school, because I could hear people playing. So the old school chapel, look at that, it's beautiful. A beautiful building. Yeah, they do like their blue doors here, don't they? Well, I like a nice doorway, and blue's my favourite colour. I'm in my element here. We've got a white one up ahead though. Yeah, manners maketh man was the motto of our school, which is the same motto as New College at Oxford. Was the motto of some of the medieval bishops who founded the colleges. So here's an old milepost, 17 miles from Bath. Robin, they're not all the same age, but fairly similar. They're all 18th and 19th century buildings. So 17 miles to Bath from here. And still, these are all parts of the school. They have their residential facilities, they have all of their different, you know, academic departments and so on. Some of the staff live on site. But we're starting to get towards what was the centre of town, and Warminster was at one time one of the most important market towns in in the county of Wiltshire. What were the main products? Well, the main products it was known for were grain, or corn as we would say in England, but when we say corn here in England, that means grain, and particularly barley. There were a lot of malting businesses here, preparing the barley, malting the barley for use in brewing. And so grain, and not so much wool and textiles here, although a little bit, but also livestock. And ahead of us, where you can see the monument in the centre of the road, this was once the livestock market. There's this fantastic clock up here, 19th century I think, on the wall there, and that would have overlooked the markets, the livestock market. So here on this kind of triangular square, triangular space, you had the roads that would go to two of the main towns and cities in the vicinity. So you'd have the road to Bath, as we saw, the milepost, and then the road around to the right there goes to the town of Frome. So this was where the marketplace was, the livestock market. And on the livestock market, this obelisk was created in the 18th century, the late 18th century. It's made of Bath stone, so sort of a golden limestone, a little bit like what we get up in the Cotswolds. And on top of it, it has a classical style urn. And, well, I've read some things that say a pineapple, some things that say an acorn. Certainly a pineapple would probably be more likely on top of a classical urn in an 18th century obelisk, because a pineapple at that time was a symbol of prosperity. Now, this obelisk was placed here to, I don't want to say celebrate, to mark a very important event in terms of the agricultural land around here, and that was the enclosure of the Warminster area. Now, enclosure, what that meant was that previously you'd had what was known as common land, where anyone could graze their livestock. But that was changed, and by various acts of Parliament, all the land was parcelled up and enclosed in private ownership. So whether you were one of the people who was benefiting from that, or whether you were the people who was losing out economically from that, would depend whether you were saying that this obelisk was celebrating the enclosure of the area as well. But that's what it was here for, and that's why it was placed right here at the cattle market. And like many memorials that we see on markets, it has drinking troughs for the livestock that were being traded here. Nowadays used for flowers, but also a drinking fountain for the people as well. 1783 as well, and there's a lovely lion's head that would once have been the tap for the drinking fountain. It's a very, very pleasant 18th century house across the way in brick, mainly brick, but also partially in stone, called Craven House, and that belonged to a family who were involved in medicine. Firstly, the textile manufacturer, but then a family who were involved in veterinary medicine. And later, though, in the second half of the 20th century, it was actually used for the officers of some part of the local government administration, which is a pretty interesting building to be used for that purpose, I think. Dates back to the 18th century as well. And it's not got a blue gate or a blue door. So that's a look back, the obelisk on the marketplace there. Let's take a walk a little bit further along the main road, shall we? Starting to get really dull now. I hope the rain holds off until we finish our tour, at least. Oh, we got to, oh, look at these, look. Well, red doors here, you see. So, if the Rolling Stones were from Warminster, would they have sung "I see a red door and I want to paint it blue"? There we go. It did. I think the thing was back there. That royal blue, that is the colour of the badge of the school. So a lot of the buildings up there that were associated with the school had the blue railings, the blue doors to designate them as such. I think that to match the blue of the original school building door. So once you get into the main town, you're just in kind of a normal area where people can paint their doors whatever colour they like, I guess. Now, like most of the market towns in England, a lot of the movement of goods and people here in Warminster was dependent on the coaching trade, both for transporting goods and for people, and all of the coaches coming here for the markets, would clog up the main street, because the town is pretty much just, there are newer parts built off, but the town is really focused along this one long main street, and that's where all of the traders would have been headed for, and where people would have been coming in from the outlying areas. And the town did have a large number of inns, which were catering for the people, providing them with somewhere to stay, something to eat, and also the stable facilities for the coaching services. So two of those old inns here on this. Well, one of them looks like it is still a pub and hotel, the Farmer's Hotel. Look at that one, right on the corner of the road here, and the White Hart looks like it's now residential. But there were two huge coaching inns in particular that I'm going to tell you about a bit later, and that's because one of them has changed its use dramatically, and one of them is still a hotel today. One thing I did notice when I was walking along earlier, there's a lot of pizza places. Pizza takeaway here. 2 doors down there's another one. There's another one over there. I saw a Domino's on the way into town. They must like their pizza. Now I'm a little bit concerned because some of these kids who are walking past us currently trying to get on my video, they might be some of the kids I'm taking to Paris tomorrow. They'll say, "Didn't we see you filming in town yesterday?" So now here we are, look. Yeah, I really am spoiling you today, aren't I? I really am spoiling you today. Postbox toppers, very, very popular, and very popular with certain people who may be on this tour. Is that not right, Beatrice? Nicole, and I don't know if Linda's here, but I know Linda in New York loves them as well. If you take a look on my Facebook group, one of the ones that Beatrice saw on a post toppers group yesterday and put a picture up, I did manage to find it today as it wasn't too much of a detour on the way down here. This one is okay, it's not too wet. It's been raining a lot recently. What tends to happen when they get wet is they get a bit like, they get absolutely soaked and they kind of flop over a little bit if you're not careful. But I think they're very cheery. I think it's nice, just you know, I mean, I love to see the traditional red post boxes anyway, but you know, why not make something extra of it? And I think it's good when individual people do it, but I think sometimes when a whole community does it and you get lots of different ones on a theme, I think it's a really lovely way of, like, a real good community thing. I think it's great. Now I'm back and forth across this road, and that one was just spreading the love, I guess, with the love heart on top of the post box. Could be one of those picture clues like on a game show. Love letters. I don't know. Now there's an interesting building just along here. It's a pub, but it's got quite an interesting history because it's called the Organ Inn, and it is now a pub, and it's reverted because it used to be a pub from the 18th century, and in the early 19th century I think partly it was still in operation as a pub, but one of the local schools, not the main grammar school, but one of the local kind of free schools that was providing education for less well-off people, they used the pub building as kind of extra facilities when they didn't have the space in their own school buildings. Later the pub closed, and for many years the pub was actually 2 shops with residential space above, but a few years ago the building was acquired, and it has reverted right back to its original use. And all the time the building was always called the Organ Inn. Even when it was shops, everybody knew the building as the Organ Inn because it had been known as that for so long. So we're not going to walk along the high street just yet, because I want to take you up this way. An interesting little street called Portway. Well, Portway itself is not that interesting. It's sort of a residential street. Quite a few a few new houses on the other side. Presumably there will once have been some kind of local industry going on there, probably the malting business. and but on this side, much older buildings. It is a busy place, though, you can see. And imagine when all the coaches and the horses were coming in for market days. You know, it would have been pretty hectic, because these days it's the road transport once again is the main way people get around, and it is pretty busy. It's on the way from various places to various other places. You know, a lot of people passing through. So some very nice older terraced buildings, pretty typical English terraced houses of the 19th century. But let me tell you a little bit about the medieval history of Warminster. So the manor of Warminster, the lords of the manor from around about the early 12th century were a family called the Mordwit family, and the Mordwit family had a mansion house, and they were in control of everything here, collecting the market tolls and everything. But one of the lords of the manor decided that he wanted to divide the manor between his sons, and so they created 2 or 3 sort of smaller estates within the overall land that the family held. And one of them was very close to the centre of town on this side, and that's where we are now. It was called Newport, and that's why this road is called Portway, because it led to Newport. And Portway subsequently became the name by which this little part of Warminster was actually known. So this was kind of all still under the auspices of the same family, but you know, until really after the Tudor period, when a lot of land ownership in this country started to change. But here in Portway we can find very, very grand building, which is somewhat fallen on hard times, leaving what I presume were once eagles on the gates, looking a little bit sorry for themselves. Well, one of them's gone altogether, but this one is looking a bit sorry for himself. Looks a real like haunted place these days. It's called Portway House. Portway House was built in this form in 1722, but this was the site of the medieval manor house of this Portway or Newport estate that the Mordwit family created. And in 1722, a very wealthy local man called Thomas Middlecut, he had this built. So he was a very wealthy man in the cloth and textile trade, and you can see, you know, that's a pretty impressive building project to have as a family home. The family that owned it, the Middlecut family, they sold it in the late 19th century, and they sold it to the Marquesses of Bath, and the Marquesses used it for a few years as a town home for some members of their family. But later, for a number of decades, it was the officers of the Marquesses of Bath and their land agents, so managing all of the estates that they owned here, Longleat, around the Warminster area, and they were based in there as officers. And later, a little bit like the building we saw earlier, it was used by the local council, and from the 1950s until the 1980s, it was actually the main public library of the town. And when that library closed, they built a new one, a modern one, in the centre of town. But it's still a very impressive building. I think it's been converted into apartments now, but it's under redevelopment again at the moment. I don't think it's in use at the moment, but a very grand gateway. Look at that. Yeah, it is. It is a shame it's in, you know, you feel like, you know, if it was in a bigger town or city, you know, it would be just a prime real estate, you know, sort of £1 million apartments and that kind of thing. But you know, it's a little bit different here in Warminster. Now, just across the way from Portway House is something very interesting, which we normally would expect to find right in the centre of a town or at the churchyard. And there are some kids loitering around, so I'm going to try very hard not to have them on camera. And so I'm sorry we're not going to get the best view of this. But this is the Warminster War Memorial. This is the Warminster War Memorial. It's built in the style of an ancient preaching cross, kind of Celtic motifs. But it was installed in 1921 to commemorate the 115 men from the town who lost their lives in the First World War, and it was later then added to second memorial added to the sculpture to commemorate the 55 in World War II. Now, Warminster, one of the things that kept the town going after the decline of its markets and its traditional industries was the military. It's on the very edge of Salisbury Plain. Now, Salisbury Plain is probably most famous as the place for where we can find Stonehenge, but Salisbury Plain is a huge areas of it belong to the Ministry of Defence. They have a lot of military exercises and things there. So there is a big military garrison on the edge of Warminster, and so it is a military town these days, a big army garrison, and so that is really what kind of kept the town alive in many ways for most of the last 100 years or so. And what that also means is that there's a third section of the War Memorial where it commemorates two Warminster-based soldiers who lost their lives in Afghanistan as well. So two soldiers from the local barracks. Now, that War Memorial itself, and again, it is beautiful. I would have loved to have had a much closer look at it, but you know, I don't want to be inadvertently filming kids. It's not right. So we are. The War Memorial was created by a local sculptor and stonemason. His name was Egerton Strong, and Strong is a name with a lot of heritage in stonemasonry. The Strong family, who were ancestors of Egerton Strong, who made that War Memorial, were the stonemasons who worked with Sir Christopher Wren on the building of St Paul's Cathedral in London. So there's a good. He comes from good stock in terms of his stone masonry prowess. Now, from stone masonry to very much a red brick building, this is the old fire station of Warminster, which is now called the Old Fire Station Restaurant and Bar. Built in 1906 for the Municipal Fire Brigade, and for the first 20 years of its operation, it included a horse-powered pump, but in 1966 the fire station was replaced with a modern one. It was a simple fact that the equipment that they needed to use for modern firefighting techniques could no longer be housed and accommodated within the 1906 building. So actually just right a little bit further beyond Portway House, a couple of minutes drive up there is the modern fire station. I passed it on the way into town earlier. This one is now a restaurant and bar, so it's great that it's still in use, and I'm guessing it might be some kind of American themed restaurant, as we have the stars and stripes flying much more prominently than the Union flags on there at the moment. Now, I've been talking a little bit about the coaching inns here in Warminster, and here on the corner we can see this big stone building. This is on the site of one of the two biggest coaching inns in the town. And this was called the London and Commercial Inn. Now, there'd been an inn on this site since the 1500s, but in the 1700s, with the growth of the coaching trade, it was rebuilt, extended, and the London and Commercial Coaching Inn. It was the main transit point for passenger coaches going from here towards London and onwards, westwards from here, people coming from London. And you can imagine as well that many of those would have been wealthy people who might have been passing through here on their way to the spa at Bath, just 17 miles away. You know, this might have been their last stopping point on that route. So it was a hugely important coaching inn. But, you know, the coaching trade was pretty much ended, and very quickly, when the railways came to Warminster in 1851, and the London and Commercial Inn closed very soon after that, because all of its trade was pretty much gone. So the site was redeveloped by an organisation called the Athenaeum Institution. And the Athenaeum organisation was an organisation that was present in all kinds of towns and cities, and they promoted adult education, so they would have libraries, reading rooms, lectures. They also wanted to enable young people to get a more extensive education, because up until the late 19th century, most people were only going to school until the age of 10. And so these Athenaeum rooms or Athenaeum institutions were set up, and they created here a lecture hall, library, reading rooms, and a set of school rooms as well. Now, as state-provided education started to become more of a thing, the need for that started to diminish. And so the purpose of the building started to shift from education more towards culture and entertainments. And so the lecture hall started to be used for concerts and for theatrical productions. They did still have lectures there, so people including William Booth, the founder of the Salvation Army, he spoke here about social reform, and the great suffragette Emmeline Pankhurst spoke here about women and the vote. But it shifted very much towards an entertainment venue, and that's still what it is today. It's a working theatre, community arts and cultural centre with concerts, dance school, and the old lecture hall operating as a theatre to this day. It's really pretty good to see this building still operating today as it has done for all that time. The Athenaeum Centre. What have we got on? Ghost the Musical. It has been a cinema as well. You know, in the middle of the 20th century, when cinema was the most popular form of entertainment, they converted the theatre so that it could be used several nights a week as a theatre and several nights a week as a cinema. But we've got Ghost the Musical. Now, we started our tour at a church. Yeah, Ghost the Musical. Not the film, I think. I know it's a little bit of a rural area, but I don't think we're quite that behind that they're just getting Ghost in the cinema. Now, we started by the Minster. No, it doesn't, Robin. It doesn't look like a typical theatre because it was originally built for another purpose. Now, the Minster Church needed a bit of support because the town was growing, so it wasn't big enough anymore. And in the 13th century, a brand new church was created, the Chapel of St. Lawrence. So this is the 13th century Chapel of St. Lawrence here on the High Street of Warminster. And this is a very interesting little church. After the Reformation, the Crown seized this church and they decided to close it down because we don't know why, because they wanted to sell it off basically to make some money. because it had a big congregation. It's not like it didn't have anyone using it. But in 1575, the townspeople of Warminster bought the church, and they decided that to run it, it wouldn't be run by the local authority. They would appoint a committee of 12, and this is the quotation, discreet and honest men of the parish, and they are called the Feofees, and this committee runs the church, and that still is the case to this day. I think they can be discreet and honest women now as well, and they meet 4 times a year, and this church is unique in the country. It does not belong to any specific Christian denomination. It does not come under any Church of England bishops or any other religious authority, and it is not owned by the municipality itself, and it is not owned by the royal family. So that makes it the only one of its kind. These churches that aren't under the Church of England authority are generally referred to in England as peculiars. The best known is Westminster Abbey, which is a royal peculiar. But this is a non-denominational, non-royal peculiar, which makes it unique. Now, I am hoping that we can have a little look inside. But, you know, let's see. Signal may go, signal may stay. Let's give it a go, shall we? Let's see if we can get into the Chapel of St. Lawrence. Just have a little tiny look inside. Oh, look at that. Very little. I'm not going to go too far in, close the door behind me, but lovely little, actually. So look, the contact details tells you. So this guy, he's a Feofee, a trustee of the church. So Ian Frostick is a discreet and honest man of the parish, evidently. Now, I'm just going to see if I can. It's a lovely stained glass window, a modern one. Showing the church, isn't that beautiful? There's a Victorian one opposite, so slightly different style of stained glass that they've had over the years. Well, we've done well there. Wow. We kept a signal then. I think we kept a signal the entire way there, you know. So it looks a very friendly place. I went in earlier to have a look, and I thought, well, I'm going to have a look in case the signal stays up and I can show you. But I'm glad it did. But I've not seen anybody. I haven't seen anybody on either of the visits, so I'm guessing there must be someone there looking out for, but so what we're going to see in a moment, just along from St. Lawrence's Chapel, is this particular building. Now this building is modelled on part of the facade of Longleat. So the Marquesses of Bath financed the construction of this building and modelled it on the style of architecture of their beautiful stately home. And this was the town hall from the early 19th century until the 1980s. There had been a previous town hall approximately right where I'm standing now, so directly across the road, but it was sort of protruding into the roadway, and it was causing a real sort of blockage on market days, which were Saturdays traditionally in Warminster. So a new town hall was financed by the Marquess of Bath, and it was the meeting place of the town hall, of the town council, sorry. It was a courthouse, and it also could host functions. It had a ballroom and those kinds of lecture hall for lectures and things like that. But in the 1970s, the local government in the UK was very much reorganised, and so the town council of Warminster was essentially abolished, and it just came under the district and county council authority. The courthouse within the building continued until 1991, after which that was merged into one of the larger towns in the area too. And nowadays it has been at various times, it's had sort of function facilities in there, sort of entertainment venues, restaurants and so on. I think there is a bar in part of the building at the moment, but it is still under a little bit of restoration as well. So you can see quite a few of the older buildings here are currently really requiring some investment and a bit of love and care, I think. Need the old the Marquis of the Marquis of Bath today to plough some of those actually quite expensive entrance fees from the safari park into some of the the buildings here, although I'm sure the upkeep of Longleat itself is not exactly cheap. So we're heading along towards what was the main market square. So we had the livestock market at the far side of town. The livestock market would always be on the edge of town, you know, so that people could bring their livestock from the surrounding area to they didn't have to have all the livestock and all of the smell and dirt that entails, you know, all going on through the town. They would tend to be on the edge of the town. But the main market for grain and other products would be right in the centre of the town, and the marketplace is kind of ahead of us. Now, I talked about the fact that the Athenaeum Theatre and Arts Centre was once the London and Commercial, one of the two biggest coaching inns. The other one was this one, which was called the Bath Arms. So, needless to say, named after the Marquesses of Bath. Beautiful Georgian building, and this was also a coaching inn, but this was a little bit more of an upmarket hotel for many years, and probably subsidised and rescued by the family of the Marquess as well. So it is preserved as a hotel and a pub, nowadays owned by the Wetherspoons chain, which is you know, a great restorer and preserver of historic buildings of all kinds in the UK, actually. Very, very popular. But the coaching inns were by no means the first. Absolutely sounds of cheap coffee and refillable coffees as well, which is not something that's that common in the UK. But the coaching inns were by no means the first inns here on the Market Square. The Old Bell Hotel. It's first recorded, well, it wasn't originally called the Old Bell, it was originally recorded as the Bell, and that was in the year 1483. So this pub dates back to 1483. What's that, 541 years? And what you can see, the most distinctive feature of it, slightly later, so the facade was added in the early 18th century. There are original sections to the building behind from the 15th century, parts of the interior as well. But they added the facade, and they added this covered arcade, this covered colonnaded walkway. And the idea of that would be quite simple. It would be so that the traders in the market would be able to be undercover on rainy days, and they would be able to set up their stalls and their negotiating points, and be protected from the elements, and be able to get a nice drink and a bite to eat as well into the bargain. And the Old Bell Hotel still serving the shoppers and the tradespeople and visitors to Warminster all these centuries later. So I'm just going to walk up to the junction here, because this is the main marketplace, the main site of the grain markets of medieval Warminster, and this is where all the action would have been going on, and it's still right at the heart of the town today. And this is where actually I am going to end, because we've had a good walk. We've had our full amount of time pretty much, and I hope you've enjoyed it. I tried to prepare a little bit and do a little bit of research, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I coming and discovering a new place, and I think I'm a great believer in the fact that anywhere you go, there are things to talk about. There's history, there are stories, there's things that you can find out, things that you can discover, and I love doing that. So I might do some more kind of, if I get the chance, particularly good when I'm going away on something like this, where I've got to go to a random place where I wouldn't normally go to meet a group, and somewhere where I can almost say, okay, I'm going to go there, I've never been there before, but we're going to do a tour. So thank you to all of you for being with me. I hope you've enjoyed it, and thank you for all your support, and I will be back as long as I don't get stuck in some kind of farmers' protest on the motorways of France. I will be back in good time for next Tuesday evening, when we have our first Everybody Has a Story event of this year, which is my interview, where one of you guys gets to do all the talking, or the majority of the talking. And I'm delighted that Casey, who has been with us on the tour today, has volunteered to do that, and we can so you can sign up for that one now if you haven't already done so, and discover what Casey has got to tell her all about her life and times. That's on Tuesday next week. Thank you, Beatrice, for sharing the link there. That is to my Padlet page, where you can find details of all my upcoming tours and talks across all different platforms. We've got free to join tours coming up in Liverpool, a Beatles tour in Liverpool. We've got a Roman tour in Chester. We've got Casey's Everybody Has a Story. We've got a normal kind of live stream tour on the 19th in another fascinating little town called Ashby de la Zouch, which is a great name, and very interesting place as well. So lots coming up, and I'll be putting some more on next week, getting those on the schedule when I get back from Paris. So thank you for all your good wishes. Thanks for your company and your participation. Thank you to Beatrice again for posting the links to... I have to put my glasses down because the link is a very dark green colour on this. And thank you, Beatrice, for putting the link to Buy Me a Coffee, where you can support my work and book on to all of the upcoming tours. It is a great name, Beatrice. And I almost wish that the tour was on a platform where I could get you all to unmute and say it. But it will be a YouTube tour rather than one where that's possible. So I'm going to say bye for now. Au revoir, everybody. I'll get ready and get into my French ready for my next few days. And I will hope to see you all very, very soon. Take care, everybody. Bye for now.